This one's on.
Good afternoon. On behalf of Canada Lands Company and Public Services and Procurement Canada, we are pleased to be hosting the Public Engagement Workshop for the Confederation Heights Master Plan. My name is Catherine Constantine, Director of Real Estate with Canada Lands Company, and I'm joined here today with Bianca Legault, Project Director from Public Services and Procurement Canada, along with our consulting team from Foten Planning and Design, Principal Matthew McElligott, Senior Rejani Padaras, and Senior Planner Bria Aird, along with from ERA Architects, Principal Graham Stewart. We are pleased to be engaging with you in the official language of your choice. Our presentation today will vary from one language to the other. After the presentation, should you feel you have missed something, please feel free to approach any one of my colleagues on the floor who will be happy to go over the information with you.
Nous sommes enchantés d'interagir avec vous dans la langue officielle de votre choix aujourd'hui. Notre présentation variera d'une langue à l'autre. Subséquemment, si vous avez manqué quelque chose, n'hésitez pas à approcher un de nos collègues avec un petit porte-nom et il nous fera plaisir de revoir avec vous le matériel.
Canada Lands Company is a federal crown corporation that specializes in real estate development and attractions management. For over 25 years, we have successfully reintegrated former federal properties back into their local communities while providing new community benefits. We pride ourselves on a consultation-based approach to pursuing community-oriented goals, environmental stewardship and sustainability, housing, and heritage commemoration. And one example of these projects is here in the Ottawa region with Water Ridge Village, the former CFB Rockcliffe.
À Services publics et Approvisionnement Canada, l'un de nos principaux rôles consiste en la provision d'espaces à bureaux adaptés aux besoins évolutifs des employés des différents ministères et agences fédérales. Beyond office buildings, we manage one of the largest and most diversified portfolio in the country, including district energy, bridges and dams, parliamentary precincts, judicial precincts, and laboratories. As part of the master plan project, the Confederation Heights site will remain a federal employment node, while also improving and strengthening the site for its future residents, public space users, and visitors of Ottawa. Dans le cadre du projet présent, il est envisagé de conserver le site comme une node, un pôle d'emploi fédéral, mais tout en améliorant l'expérience pour les différents types d'utilisateurs et aussi en faisant en sorte que ce lieu devienne une destination.
We are here with you today as part of a collaboration project between PSPC and Canada Lands. This collaborative model was directed by the Government of Canada, asking both of our organizations to collaborate and to address underutilized and obsolete federal assets through a series of innovative redevelopment projects. The role includes PSPC as steward of Crown lands for federal office accommodations and Canada Lands as specialists in redeveloping underutilized Crown lands.
Notre collaboration vise à transformer ces zones d'espace à bureaux, présentement à usage unique, en des communautés durables, autonomes et aussi d'usage diversifié. Le projet du plan directeur des buts de la Confédération travaille à avancer les priorités stratégiques de nos deux organisations. Nous aimerions souligner 4 de ces priorités. La première, une empreinte fédérale réimaginée. L'utilisation d'espaces à bureaux est en cours de redéfinition et continuera d'évoluer dans un futur très proche. L'un des objectifs du plan directeur est de réimaginer l'empreinte des propriétés de SPAC tout en continuant d'accueillir le personnel fédéral et en disposant des priorités qui sont considérées comme sous-utilisées et pour des fins et les utiliser maintenant, les reconvertir à des fins travaillant vers des objectifs plus importants et pour la population. La deuxième priorité est la réconciliation autochtone. SPAC a entrepris des activités de consultation avec les communautés autochtones afin de respecter les obligations de la couronne envers les peuples autochtones dans le cadre de la disposition de l'aliénation de propriété fédérale. Aussi, nos deux organisations impliquent les communautés et organisations afin d'intégrer leur apport et aussi afin de renforcer ces relations qui sont si importantes.
In addition, another key priority for us is sustainability and climate resiliency, demonstrating climate leadership and responsible development that includes best practices in sustainability and carbon emissions, energy efficiency, wastewater management, and biodiversity. As well, affordable housing. The master plan will identify federal lands no longer required by the federal government and slated for sale to Canada Lands. Canada Lands is a key player in enabling affordable housing opportunities on former federal property. We are committed to providing a minimum of 20% of the units to be set aside for affordable housing. Since the launch of our project in fall of 2021, we have been actively engaging with stakeholders, federal departments and tenants, the public, and along with the NCC and the City of Ottawa. For those of you who may be new to this project, I welcome you to visit our engagement platform for previous recordings of our previous public meetings, as well as access to the As We Heard It reports, where we've summarized what we've heard and the feedback we've received to date. Over this past year, our work plan has been focused on developing concept options that we will present to you today. And as well, we've been further advancing our engagement with Indigenous communities. We are pleased to be presenting to you concept options where our goal is to workshop these further with you. Following today's session, if you feel you know someone who wasn't able to join us today, we will be launching a complimentary online exercise and access to a recording of this public meeting, as well as plans where you can still participate. For those of you following this meeting, you feel like you have additional information to share with us, we welcome you to participate that way as well.
En parallèle à tout ce travail, une approche globale a été développée afin d'impliquer les partenaires, communautés autochtones et le grand public. Nous impliquons activement les communautés algonquines des alentours ainsi que des communautés autochtones locales afin de mieux comprendre comment elles peuvent être davantage intégrées et impliquées dans le plan directeur ainsi que les usages des terrains SPAC qui se trouvent sur les buts de la Confédération. Nos efforts Nos efforts d'engagement jusqu'à maintenant nous ont dicté que le plan directeur devait permettre d'améliorer la connectivité, de transitionner vers une communauté d'usage diversifié, d'usage mixte, de lui permettre d'introduire un environnement bâti et des commodités diversifiées, de démontrer un leadership en développement durable, d'introduire des logements abordables, bien entendu, et de reconnaître l'architecture unique à facture moderne qui date du milieu du 20e siècle, ainsi que de célébrer le patrimoine autochtone. S'appuyant sur les rétroactions reçues antérieurement, nous avons développé un énoncé de vision ainsi que 7 principes directeurs pour le développement et la phase de mise en œuvre du projet. Si vous voulez plus d'informations sur les principes directeurs et la vision, veuillez vous référer sur les pancartes qui ont été disposées le long du mur de la salle.
As you review the material being presented to you today and participate in the workshop sessions, we would like you to please keep in mind that at this phase of the project, we are still very much exploratory, and we want to hear your feedback and advice on the various key elements of each of these plans. Our team will be asking a series of questions, and after this round of engagement, our team then takes all of this information back received in order to help us refine to what we will be calling a proposed draft master plan. Our team looks forward to being back to the public to present this master plan next year. I will now turn it over to our consulting team, Matt McElligott from FOTEN Planning and Design.
Merci Catherine. Bonjour tout le monde. Nous sommes très heureux que vous êtes de vous accueillir ce soir. Alors premièrement, je vais introduire mon équipe. Mon nom c'est Matthew McElligott. Je suis principal à FOTEN. Je suis ici avec Graham Stewart, the heritage expert. Bria Aird, who is senior planner at FOTEN, and Hejane Padaraz, who is principal of urban design. Premièrement, nous aimerons vous donner un aperçu de notre processus de conception et souligner les considérations principales, approches et solutions que nous avons utilisées pour le développement des trois schémas que vous verrez aujourd'hui. When we get to the concepts, you'll see that they are different iterations or takes on how to achieve a master plan vision. And they do share basic principles, which we will outline today. Mais avant de couvrir le processus de conception, nous voulons revoir avec vous la carte présentée lors des activités d'engagement précédent qui identifie les différents propriétaires du site. So maybe you have seen this before in previous engagement activities, but this is the land ownership map. So PSPC is the largest landowner in the study area, and these are all the lands colored in red. Of course, it owns the majority of the land on which the federal government employment is located, as well as the land on which the RA Center is located, and portions of the Sawmill Creek corridor. We recognize the RA Center as a stakeholder in this process. The NCC also owns a large portion of the land within the study area, including the parkland, of course, along the Rideau River, and some lands within the Sawmill Creek corridor. This is shown in the dark pink color on the screen. Canada Post owns the lands located to the southeast of the intersection of Heron Road and Riverside Drive, which is the dark purple color. Health Canada is a custodian of the rectangular shaped parcel that is colored orange on the north side of Brookfield Road, west of the Airport Parkway. And both Canada Post and Health Canada are recognized as federal stakeholders in the study area. Finally, the City of Ottawa owns the lands within the study area, which is not colored, and this includes all of the municipal streets, so Riverside Drive, Heron Road, and Bronson Avenue being the three big ones, and of course includes all the on and off ramps. Alors, nous avons identifié trois enjeux fondamentaux à adresser dans le plan directeur. These key design considerations, which we saw as critical to the shape of Confederation Heights today and in the future, are mobility, so la mobilité, cultural heritage, la patrimoine, and green space, les espaces verts. And I'm going to take you through the major transportation infrastructure before handing it off to my colleague, Graham. So Confederation Heights is shaped by major transportation infrastructure, and this includes three major roadways, of course, Bronson, Riverside, and Heron. Two train lines, so the Via Rail train line, and the Trillium, which is an LRT, which will hopefully be up and running in the spring. And these have really important regional functions that will remain integral to the site into the future. However, they do fragment and sterilize much of the land for development. Confederation Heights has fantastic existing and planned transit, and the master plan is looking to capitalize on these assets. Lastly, the existing and planned active transportation network surrounding the site is fairly strong, but the existing infrastructure on the site is poor. It really represents a hole in the network. Alors, régler les problèmes de connectivité au site et sur le site permettra de résoudre plusieurs autres problématiques. Conséquemment, cet item est un point focal et primaire de notre processus. So solving connectivity on the site will require obviously collaboration between multiple landowners and stakeholders, particularly the City of Ottawa, which owns and operates most of the right-of-ways, most of the streets. As a reminder, what you're seeing today, these are just preliminary design concepts which we've shared with the City of Ottawa transportation staff. We are still in an exploratory stage. We will continue to work closely with them as we land on a preferred solution that takes into consideration emerging information. The concept options have not been endorsed by city staff, and we will continue to conduct our technical evaluation and work with them. L'équipe de projet a travaillé avec la Ville d'Ottawa afin d'explorer les changements au réseau et d'atteindre les objectifs du plan directeur et du plan officiel de la Ville. La phase actuelle est une phase exploratrice qui sera suivie d'analyses techniques et de faisabilité qui permettront de raffiner le réseau proposé suite à la réception de commentaires du public. With that in mind, each of the concept draws on the following approaches. First, to rationalize the on and off ramps to remove barriers. Second, to redesign the existing streets to rebalance them for all modes of transportation while continuing to support their arterial traffic function. Third, to create new active transportation corridors to connect people across the site and to existing active transportation networks. Finally, to add new local roads that will be designed to be multimodal. And with all of these strategies, create a network where the vast majority of trips can be achieved by walking, cycling, and transit. So I'm going to pause here and hand it off to my colleague, Graham Stewart, who will walk you through the heritage approach.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Matt. So this is such a phenomenal opportunity, what's happening on this site. What we're looking at here is sort of the history of this site. And there was an extraordinary level of ambition. It contains these four buildings you see here have been identified by the federal government as landmark heritage properties. And it is interesting, as a heritage professional, we deal with all sorts of different ways of looking at the past and looking at how people value the past. And sometimes when people see different types of buildings, they have different reactions. And so some of you may be confused, why is this a landmark building? Why is it a heritage building? Other of you might be huge advocates who'd say this absolutely is the most important building in Canada. And so that's the debate. That's the discussion. But where we are is that these four buildings have been identified as landmarks. So there's a real sense of, well, what was the history? How do we unpack what was special about them in their conception? And how do they form part of the future? So part of the ambition of this part of the city was to build a new federal campus in a modernizing Ottawa, starting in the 1950s, going through the 1970s, to say, what does a modern capital look like? And really, what does a modern nation look like? This is part of, post-war, the post-war growth, post-war ambition, and really thinking of both how at that time was the edge of the city, and the south of the Rideau River to have a completely new campus and a completely new way of thinking of it as the Jetsons or the space age. This is space age modernism and a new way of sort of living. And with that came these very ambitious public buildings. Some of them were the former CBC headquarters. Others was the current CRA headquarters, which was envisioned to be at first the Ministry of Northern Affairs. So these are these big public statements. At the same time, these buildings were positioned in this amazing network of open space, both by the river in terms of natural systems and with these large open plans of green space, which at the time was really seen as an ecological way and a thoughtful way of organizing a city. Fast forward 50 years. So we've inherited this. We have this enormous opportunity to meet all of the amazing objectives that we heard about building the city that we want of the future, that's ecological, that's sustainable, that's mixed use, that's connected. But also we have this heritage or this patrimony of this amazing amount of space and these buildings. And so the different plans look at different ways of doing this. There's also a responsibility to do it in the most thoughtful way possible. But going to the next slide, what we're looking at really carefully is how can some of the big ideas embedded in these different plans when you have your conversations work with the inheritance that we have. So one example is just the extraordinary opportunity of the green space, both around these landmark buildings, but connected to the ecological corridors. And how can that green space be performative? And what we mean by that, how can it retain water? How can it have natural and native species? How can it actually help our city, help the region and be connected to the region? The other is cultural and storytelling. How do we link these buildings and these former campuses, which right now are quite fragmented, and build it into a singular piece? So that relates both to transportation, but it also relates to experience and storytelling and thinking of this region, Confederation Heights as a major district. It's the size of a city, a large city, but also connected more broadly. And another area to sort of think through is what are the relationships between the new neighborhoods and the new scales of density and the new road network with these existing spaces, and how can those really be optimized? So what you're seeing in the plan, and some of the plans you'll see, but also in the relationship to heritage, are about those juxtapositions and adjacencies. Homes that are next to large open spaces that could be completely reconceived. The way that the roadway, which right now when it was built, it really was about how do we impress foreign dignitaries as they go from the new airport to the Parliament buildings and go by these modern buildings, which at the time were state of the art. It really was about that, driving in your fast car, down the road to see these big buildings. There's a reconception of the road network to actually be human scaled, to be about neighborhoods and networks. And part of it is this real opportunity of expansion and compression, where parts of it in the roadway will be the larger fast roads that are by green spaces that will then narrow and become hubs of neighborhoods. And what are those relationships like? So these are some of the ideas to think through when you go into your tables. What would you like to see? How can the legacy that was the previous version of Confederation Heights, enter into what we want it to be in the 21st century? And at this, I will pass it to my colleague Bria to walk us through the next stages.
Merci, Graham. Comme Graham a dit, les espaces ouverts et l'écologie sont intimement liés à l'héritage culturel et font partie de l'ADN du site. Et les espaces ouverts du site affichent des différents caractères. So through our analysis, we've identified 3 overlapping kinds or functions of green space in Confederation Heights. We've got ecologically rich spaces, including along the Rideau River, Sawmill Creek, and in the remnant woodlots within the intervention area that are significant habitat. Then we've got the modernist landscapes, which Graham spoke to, which are more pastoral or curated in nature. And then third, we've got active recreation facilities throughout the site. So this slide illustrates some of our approach thinking on how to connect green space into a more coherent system and to recognize and enhance the existing vocation of green spaces, as Graham had mentioned, and allow for a richer integration and overlapping of functions. Pour renforcer les stratégies d'héritage culturel, on cherche à conserver et créer une grande connexion verte en plein cœur du site. Et on essaie de renforcer les liens de transport actifs avec les connexions vertes. So the master plan is guided by the principle ensuring climate resiliency, and this really comes from what we heard from you, the public, as well as alignment with the federal mandate as it relates to PSPC's carbon neutral portfolio plan and Canada Land's priority to be a market leader when it comes to advancing the government's net zero by 2050 goal, and to facilitating the development of climate resilient communities nationwide. So based on this guiding principle, we have developed a draft sustainability framework that draws on the principles from One Planet Living, and this has formed sort of the foundation or the basis for the options development phase that we're in right now. Suite aux discussions d'aujourd'hui, les prochaines étapes pour notre équipe incluant l'identification des exigences, normes et indicateurs de performance clés. Ces derniers seront établis en fonction des décisions prises pour le portfolio fédéral et le redéveloppement à venir des terrains de but de la Confédération qui ont été identifiés comme excédentaires. Nous sommes présentement à la troisième étape du plan directeur qui inclut le développement des 3 schémas exploratoires simulant comment le site pourra se réinventer dans le futur. So we'll now walk you through the 3 concepts that are at the tables and on the boards behind you. And we'll use the themes and the big moves for each to do so. So as has been mentioned before, it's important to note that these are in an exploratory phase, and we've created them to be tested. So by you today, through our online engagement exercise with our stakeholders and our approval authorities, and then also through technical and feasibility studies that our team is currently undertaking. So with that, the first theme is Gateway to the Capital. So this theme takes its DNA from the modernist cultural landscape and buildings and the natural environment assets of the site. Celebrate culture and heritage of the site and enrich access to nature and recreation are the driving, the principal guiding principles for this theme, with the other guiding principles as supporting. The big moves on this concept are capital arrival and ecological stewardship. Les grandes lignes de ce schéma sont l'arrivée dans la capitale et l'intendance écologique. So, in big move 1, capital arrival, the really big idea here is that Bronson and Heron Road are brought to an accurate intersection, which forms a new heart for Confederation Heights. And this will restore 1500 Bronson and 875 Heron to their position of landscape prominence on that big capital arrival route from the Ottawa airport. And this move does realize part of the original intent of the Guerrero plan for Ottawa, and will be supported by retention of all heritage buildings on the site in this concept, and larger modernist landscape areas. So again, as Graham mentioned, the big idea here is really to create a sense of arrival from a denser urban node right at that new intersection, and then opening up to generous landscapes that really allow you to appreciate the landmark heritage buildings, and certainly 1500 Bronson, which we consider the jewel of Confederation Heights. So, il y a aussi quelques exemples où des jonctions complexes, incluant des rampes d'accès et des sorties, qui ont été convertis avec succès à des intersections situées au niveau du sol. Et nous aimerions créer un environnement encore plus accueillant et sécuritaire pour les piétons et les autres. Okay, so the second big move of this concept, la deuxième grande ligne, est l'intendance écologique. In this concept, the existing ecologically rich areas of the campus are protected, stewarded, and really given a fair amount of room to breathe, to grow, and to have an interplay with other parts of the campus. So we envision that the large pastoral landscapes that characterize the site are retained, but that their vocation is reimagined to allow for more of an interplay of naturalized biodiverse spaces and more formal elements. And that the management, the design, the management, the planting would all be used to reinforce a sense of discovery as you move through the site. And to support this, this concept theme provides the largest amount of open space and parks out of the 3. So with that, I will now hand it over to Hijani to take you through the last two concepts.
Okay, thanks, Bria. So I'm going to be walking through the last couple of concepts that we have today. So this concept is basically creating a recreational district. So this concept embraces the existing recreational assets of the site as a catalyzing uses to really transform this area into a new recreational district within the city of Ottawa. The concept basically recognizes that the city area is almost bookended by these really amazing open spaces and green spaces. So we have the federal parks, Vincent Massey Park and Hogsback Park to the west, and Sawmill Creek to the east. And these are areas characterized mainly by passive recreational uses. So we have trails, picnic tables, large wooded areas, those kind of things. We also recognize the RA Center is on site. And it's a really interesting and important asset in more of an active recreational function. So we have sports, we also have summer camps. So this concept weighs a little bit heavier on the guiding principles of enrich access to recreation and create connections. The two big moves here include a cultural entertainment district and the arch and the line. So les grandes lignes de ce concept incluent quartier culturel et divertissement et l'arche et la ligne. So this concept will create a new cultural and entertainment district at the heart of Confederation Heights and really centered at the new LRT station that we're getting. It really synergizes really well with the existing recreation assets on site, as we mentioned, the RA Center, federal institutions, parks, passive recreation. On this option, we envision the RA Center really expanding its services, adding potential new sports, healthcare uses, or even wellness centers, and really trying to envision this as a federal or a regional or international node for these kind of facilities and activities. You also look at the creation of a purely dedicated block for a new destination use within the city of Ottawa, and we're here today and we welcome your feedback on what that could be. And we're also looking at adaptive reusing, so finding new uses for federal heritage buildings, such as 1500 Brownson, the heating and cooling plant, which is a modernist building, but bringing in new cultural and entertainment uses that are really capitalizing and bringing people to Confederation Heights as a destination. So the second big move of this concept is really creating two new mobility corridors. This is a strategy that's actually seen throughout all three options, but it's strongest and clearer version on this plan. So the arch will be a new pedestrian complete street that will connect you from Brookfield Road all the way to Dana Center Road. So you'll be walking up north from Brookfield, running along the Canada Post building. You're going to cross at Heron at a signalized intersection. You would walk through the Tilly building, over the LRT line, into the 1500 Brownson building, so having a new experience for these buildings. At another intersection on Brownson Avenue, and it will take you to the RA Center and ultimately at Data Center Road. The other corridor will be the line. So this will be a purely active transportation corridor. You would run along the LRT line, connecting Carleton University through the new pedestrian bridge that's being built, through the LRT corridor, take you to the LRT station, and all the way down to Sawmill Creek and the existing pathways that we already have along Airport Parkway. So together, the arch and the line are new active transportation priority corridors that connect the site to beyond the boundaries of the existing study area and into the rest of the communities. Ensemble, de l'Arche et la Ligne sont nouveaux corridors de transport prioritaires et actifs, connectant au-delà des limites de la zone d'étude, reliant le réseau de mobilité de manière rationnelle. Now we get into concept theme number 3. So this we're calling intensify and urbanize. So in this concept, the focus really is on creating a new community that serves the needs of its residents by creating opportunities for development to support a balanced mix of uses, new services, creation of additional housing units will contribute to affordability and attainability of housing, and also meeting our sustainability goals. This concept is mostly directly inspired by the designations of hub and corridor that are from the City of Ottawa's official plan. So the two big moves for this concept will be create a fine-grained street grid and maximize density near transit. So les grandes lignes sont introduites une granularité plus raffinée au niveau de rue et réseaux de l'eau urbaine qui poussent les limites afin de créer des opportunités de densification et maximise la densité près des transports en commun et créant un voisinage urbain robuste. The main guiding principles that are driving this concept include develop a complete community, design with people in mind, and be an inclusive and accessible space for everyone. So this concept introduces several new streets, quite a lot more streets than the other two concepts within the site. The intention of this is to create block patterns that are smaller and that create more opportunities for high density development and creates more of a walkable and navigable grid. The intent is for this grid to be more orthogonal than the existing grid, and that's to help improve legibility and walkability as well as wayfinding. Smaller blocks also help create additional densities and opportunities for ground floor activating uses. So we're looking at maybe some townhouses within podiums of buildings, or your local stores, your coffee shops fronting onto the streets and framing and activating those streets. And the second big move here is maximizing density near transit. So these blocks will be for high density redevelopment, and they're mainly located in close proximity to transit. Important to note, this is the denser out of the three options that are being presented today. And the intent of this is the higher densities of this plan could potentially help contribute to affordability and affordability targets. As mentioned, so these concepts create new development blocks beyond the two other options. So we were looking at intensifying, say, the vacant parking lot across from the Tupper building. The Tupper building itself is envisioned on this option as being explored to be demolished, and seeing what could happen on that site for additional development. Looking for additional opportunities to intensify along heritage parcels like 1500 Bronson, and also using air rights over the LRT station, for instance. So merci à toutes et à tous.